Hey there, check this out. I want to show you something. So I've got a little React app here where a new user can sign in. They can click on this button to start up link, and we'll fast forward through this because it's kind of boring. And then when we're done with the entire link flow, we make a call to the auth API to fetch like our user's routing and account numbers, right? And that's pretty standard. If you look in the code, I fetch a link token here if you're not connected to a bank. Up here is where I set up my Plaid link options with all my various callbacks and added my link token. Here's where I define my link open method, which is called down here when the user clicks on this button. So far, this is probably pretty standard if you've worked with Plaid link in a React app before. But the thing is, this isn't the only way we can display link within your app. Let me show you another approach. So I'm going to keep all this logic the same. Like we'll still have our Plaid options here, but instead of having this button to call link open, I'm going to replace this with a Plaid embedded link component. I'll pass in the config like so, and give it an explicit size. And watch what happens now. This time when I load up my application with a new user, I get this nice little embedded search box that's already populated with a bunch of banks. I can still select one of these as the institution I want to connect to, and it's just the same link experience from here, right? It will still call my callbacks in the configuration object when I'm done, and so that means it'll exchange my public token for an access token, and I can make a call to auth get. Now, you might be wondering why you'd want to do this. Well, partly it looks cool. At least, I think it does. But probably more importantly, it can improve the uptake of users choosing to connect with Plaid. I know this example here might be a little bare bones, but in the case of a pay-by-bank solution where you might have like all your different payment options, it turns out that if you can provide this interface here as kind of a launching off point where people are presented with like this nice UI full of bank logos that they recognize and probably use, they're more inclined to choose this pay-by-bank option. And that generally means lower fees for you, which is a good thing. Now, a couple quick notes here. First, these banks are displayed using the same personalization logic that Plaid uses in the normal link flow. So this probably incorporates signals like banks that are in the same state as me, or the app that's making the call, or even my device type. And just like with regular link, you can customize this list in the Plaid dashboard. Second, when you are styling this component, make sure you specify height and width here and not like min height and min width. Those end up looking a little funky. And third, this embedded flow also works with the returning user experience, meaning that if you have the user's phone number, go ahead and add it to the link token, along with this special link customization flow in Sandbox, and you can still use the returning user flow where a user simply confirms an SMS code to connect. But Todd, you're saying, what if I'm not using React? What if I'm just using plain old vanilla JavaScript? Well, the solution is pretty much the same, the details are just a little different. So let's take a look. Here is the same basic app in JavaScript. You can see that I still have the start link function that I call in response to the user clicking on a button. In there, I fetch a link token, although maybe in your application, you're doing this when your page first loads or something. And then I create my handler by calling Plaid create, passing in all the different callbacks along with my link token. And then at the end, I call handler.open. So with the embedded link flow, let's start by getting rid of this button. I should also probably remove some references to it in my code just so my JavaScript doesn't crash. And then what I'll do is create a target div. I'll give it some styling here where I set the size and an ID. And then what I'll do is instead of calling Plaid create, I'll call Plaid create embedded. The rest of the call itself is nearly the same. It's just that after passing along this configuration object with all the callback handlers and the link token, I'm going to pass along a second argument after this configuration object. That's the target div. And then there's no need to call handler.open when I'm done because create embedded will already start this thing running in the div. And then because I no longer need a button to start link, I'll call this start link function automatically in my code at a point where it makes the most sense. Typically, this is the same logic where I would decide whether or not to show that original connect to link button in the first place. Or in my case, this is at the point in my app where I've noticed the user hasn't connected to a bank. But your use case may vary. And now when I load the page, I can see that instead of the original connect with link button, I now have my embedded link search showing up in this div that I just created. But Todd, you're saying, the web is so old-fashioned. I'm a native mobile developer. What should I do? Well, okay, fancy pants. Let's look at how to do this on iOS. So the process here, pretty much the same as on the web. First thing we're going to do is delete this button, or, for the purpose of this video, I'll just hide it so we don't have a bunch of broken references. And let me add in a placeholder view for fun. I will add an outlet to it in my code. So before, we would fetch a link token when we load up this view controller and then save it. And then later in our start link was pressed call, we would create a link token configuration, call plaid.create with this config, and then call open on the handler that gets created. This config object, by the way, is up here where we've defined our onSuccess, onExit, onEvent callbacks, and stored our link token. But now we can basically ignore this button. Instead, when we get a link token, we'll just call this code directly. We'll create our link token configuration and then call plaid create using this config. And this time, instead of calling handler.open, we'll call handler.createEmbeddedView. This will create that view that contains all of our bank logos. And then feel free to add it to your application however you'd like. I'm going to make use of that placeholder view I created before by adding this new embedded view into the placeholder view and then changing the constraint so that it fills the space. And now when I start up my app, there's my embedded view ready to be interacted with. One quick note about the iOS application, try to get version 5.6.1 or later of the SDK. The embedded view does a better job of filling the available space in this version. But Todd, you're saying, I'm an Android developer. How about showing us a little love? Well, don't worry, my friend. The process is similar for you too. Let's take a look. So the first thing I'll do is hide this Plaid link button, and then I will add a frame layout that will contain the new embedded link flow. I'll also add a placeholder variable for it in my app. And so before, my app would fetch a link token, and when it received one, it would create a token configuration and enable the open button. The open button, when clicked, would create a Plaid handler and then launch it through this activity result launcher thingy. So let's change this up a bit. So now, once we've fetched a link token, we will not enable this button, which we can't see anyway because we hid it. Instead, I'm going to call plaid.createEmbeddedLinkView, where I pass in the current application, the token configuration, and this activity result launcher. I'll also need to add in this exit handler at the end just in case this fails before the link activity itself can be opened. And then just like in the iOS version, this will create a view that I need to somehow place in my app. In my case, I'm just going to add this frame layout that I created earlier, and I will add the embedded view to it. And so now if we try this again, there is my link embedded search view all ready to go in my Android app. But Todd, you're saying, what if I'm a mobile developer, but I'm not using the native Plaid SDKs? Well, in those situations, you're probably using hosted link or the deprecated web view, and so you won't be able to display this embedded search view inside your app, which, kind of makes sense if you think about it. But as for the rest of you, I do hope you give this experience a try, particularly if you're looking to encourage your customers to choose Pay by Bank. Like I said, it really improves adoption there, and it's worth checking out. So there you go. Was this helpful? You want to see other stuff covered, like the React first approach? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get more fun, quick tips like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.